Now, our first presenter tonight is Knight Aerospace, who happens to be a tenant here at Port San Antonio, where SANSAT is located. As evidenced by the COVID-19 pandemic and the possibility of future outbreaks of other infectious diseases, leaders need to be flexible and able to pivot in order to meet quickly changing demands like hospital capacity and transportation of highly contagious patients. Colonel J. Johannigman is a trauma surgeon at Brooke Army Medical Center, San Antonio, and he is also the Chief Medical Officer at Knight Aerospace, and he's going to share with us how Knight Aerospace met the turbulent challenge head-on and developed its very first aeromedical biocontainment module, which allows for the safe transport of highly contagious or critically injured patients on large cargo aircraft. It is the first fully airworthy modular system in the world. Bianca Rhodes, Knight's president and CEO, has these opening words.
Knight Aerospace exists at the amazing intersection of military, aerospace, and medicine. For almost 30 years, the company has led the world with products that safely and comfortably move people and patients, but we're much more than transportation. With COVID-19, we brought treatment in the air to a whole new level. Our ability to transform a cargo aircraft to a flying hospital leverages the aircraft and provides the separation needed to protect it and the aircrew. Featuring a number of robust technologies, it brings a hospital-like environment to the air so that caregivers can focus on the patient and the patient is given the best opportunity to thrive. Today, I am so pleased to introduce you to J. Johannigman, our Chief Medical Officer, and someone who experienced COVID in a very unique way. Thank you so much for the opportunity to tell our story to you today. Jay?
Thank you so much. So in the upper left-hand corner, you see the iconic HH-13 Aircorps, the bubble helicopter made so famous by MASH. I wouldn't be here today without that helicopter. My father, an artillery officer in Korea, was wounded and survived a mission on the HH-13. Aeromedical evacuation since the invention of wing flight throughout military history has pretty much been about moving a patient from point A to point B without causing further harm. That was true all the way up through the Vietnam era. But Gulf Storm 1, Mogadishu, and the events of OIF and OEF taught us that we had to change the paradigm of critical care. We no longer were able to afford huge hospitals because our military soldiers moved so fast. We had to create hospitals that were mobile, lean, and light and could move with breathtaking speed to be near them. But we couldn't take the time to build a critical care facility, so we had to take critical care to them. That resulted in the genesis of the critical care air transport teams here in San Antonio, Texas, just up the hill at Wilford Hall. And in fact, I had the privilege of flying the first mission landing at Kelly Field in 1993. You see pictures of CCAT teams. A critical care air transport team is a physician, a nurse, and a respiratory therapist. We hand carry our gear and we will go forward on anything that will get us there, like the nimble C-130. We literally are standing by in the operating rooms of these 10 hospitals with the gear to accept the patient and transfer the moment they're ready to be moved. And we must maintain the critical level of intensity so that we can bring these soldiers back to a more rearward and a more secure location. We do so in cargo aircraft because they're available everywhere, but a cargo aircraft was not necessarily meant to be an ICU. It experiences Gs, a combat takeoff at 1.5 Gs. It's a darkened environment. It's very noisy because we don't sound protect the interior of the aircraft. At 85 decibels, I can't hear my patients or my alarm. It's dark so that we're not targeted. The flights are long in duration, 12 to 14 hours, or even 24 hours if we aerial refuel. We have a cabin altitude of 8,000 feet, which imposes its own medical criticality on our critically ill patients. And then we're moving the most precious cargo in the world, the American soldier who put themselves in harm's way. Over the last 20 years, we've moved 6,500 critically ill soldiers with a mortality rate of less than 0.2%. This is the mission of CCAT teams, and the statistics will tell us that within 72 hours, 96% of all critically wounded soldiers have been moved through surgery by CCAT teams all the way back to Germany. It's an incredible mission and one I've had the opportunity to participate in over my 8 combat tours. But then COVID hits, and it throws us a bit of a curveball, because as you can see in this environment, We now have to worry about not only the external stressors that the aircraft can apply on our patients, but we now also have to worry about what our patient can do to the interior of that aircraft. I'm sure you can imagine that the Air Force takes it pretty seriously if I put a patient with an infectious disease on board a $366 million aircraft and contaminate the entire interior of that aircraft, making it useless. So now we had to rethink this whole COVID pandemic because part of our medical mission was moving critically ill patients on ventilator support who had COVID. And so now I not only have to worry about the external environment factors on my patient, but how my patient affects the cabin, the crew, and the ability to reuse that aircraft. You can see the footprint on the bottom left-hand side of what it takes to take care of a critically ill patient, the patient themselves, the equipment, and the crew, and now we have to figure out some way to box that up and make it safe. You can see the first attempts, fairly inelegant, made out of plastic sheeting and not very sturdy, not very safe, and we had to actually lash it with cargo chains as we tried to move it on board that beautiful C-17, which is our air ambulance, over the mission. This is where it's been so wonderful to be back in San Antonio in this wonderful military medical environment of innovation. Working in concert, and you know no military person can talk without acronyms, so let me walk you through the acronyms of working, and up in the upper right-hand corner, you see that first aeromedical biocontainment module. To the upper left is what it looks like on the inside, very much different than what I showed you being in the belly of a cargo aircraft. That looks almost like my hospital ICU. By transforming the environment and wrapping it in a shelter, I can control the air coming in and render it surgically sterile for my patient care, but also equally important in the era of a pandemic, I can make sure that all the air being exited is triply filtered and absolutely pure and clean. So, in that environment now I have light, I have noise abatement, I have vibration settlement. And so I can be much more SA, situationally aware. I can concentrate on my patient rather than the environment, and I can intercept the patient before they get into problems. I can go through the OODA loop, a pilot's term, to observe, orient, decide, and act in a much more facile reason because I'm in an environment that's just like the one I work in every day. It looks like a hospital to me rather than battling the interior of this very noisy cabin environment or trying to move a patient from the hospital in the dark to a bus, as you see in that middle picture there. Now, literally, that looks like a piece of cargo on the exterior to our cargo handling crews. Inside, we're buttoned up. We can be moved on a K-loader and then moved from the hospital and onto the aircraft, locked into the cargo system, and now all I have to do is worry about staying on top of my patient. It has been breathtaking to me. I've been back in San Antonio now for a couple years, and I still work at Brooke Army, which is my joy, and I just came back from a year-long deployment where we were able to solve some, but not all of the COVID problems. For the first time in my military experience, though, working in an environment such as here at Port San Antonio, I've been given the privilege of working side by side with engineers, starting with a clean sheet of paper, and benefiting from engineering experience with coming to a solution that works to the end in the benefit of patient care. We're engineering from the ground up. In the top left-hand corner, you see the first module delivered to the Canadian Air Force, which has been so successfully utilized over the past 8 months that there's probably a request for more coming in the imminent future. This is exciting to me because now I can concentrate on my patient and I can make sure that we bring that soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine home as they should be to the recovery that they deserve. So I want to thank you all very much. It's been a great pleasure to be here. And thank you for this opportunity.